Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine, and today we're going to be talking about the anti-work movement. If we want to be honest, anti-work probably first started back in the 18 and 1900s, when all of our ancestors here in America fought during the Industrial Revolution to end child labor and to make the workday shorter. However, today that definition has changed a bit, since most of our discussions take place online, such as Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere where somebody can post their opinion. What happened to make us want to be anti-work? Is my generation lazy? Do we not want to work? Do we want to live off of welfare? Well, not exactly, and that's not what the movement represents at all. Thinking that we all want to live off welfare and we're all just lazy bums is really close-minded of you and quite conservative. And conservative does not equal Republican. The reason I believe the anti-work movement is hitting so heavily these days is because people are tired of working 40, 50, and 60 hours a week to not be able to afford an apartment or car insurance or even health insurance. We all know how expensive that is. And it's so tiring to work and work and work and work and not be able to survive. I don't believe it's fair, and we don't think it's fair. And now you might say, well, life isn't fair. No, it's not, but we can try to make it be. Why is suffering okay? Why is misery acceptable? Why not work together to try and change what we're going through to be happier like our ancestors did for us? Working hard doesn't make you rich. I've never seen a rich donkey before, have you? You have a better chance at becoming wealthy by working for yourself. And even if you don't want to work for yourself, the anti-work movement is still relevant toward that group of people because they want to use their time to explore whatever they want. They want the freedom of time, because time is something you can never get back. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. If time passes, it's over. You can't go back and redo it. And we find ourselves living our lives to work. All we do is wake up, go to work, come home, sleep, wake up, go to work, come home, sleep. You get what I mean. It gets pretty monotonous and it can drive you insane, really. People say that life is a gift, but it seems like there are strings attached with that gift in terms of only being alive and being here to make other people's pockets bigger and fatter and richer and amazing, while you, the little worker mouse, is struggling to survive. And people say, work harder, work harder, work harder, work harder. How much harder? How much harder can I work? How many hours is feasible for me to work in a week while still maintaining a good standard of life? Why does your life only mean something when you're making someone else rich? That's not living, that's surviving. The human experience is more than work, work, work. I know what it's like to be in an office for 9 hours a day under the fluorescent lighting, the quietness of people, the ringing of the phones, the tick of the clocking in and clocking out, and staring at the clock and waiting and waiting and waiting to be able to go home so you could sleep because you're too tired to do anything else. You're too tired to cook, so you order takeout. Then that drains your pockets because that gets expensive. And then on your lunch break, your 30-minute or hour lunch break, you sit in your car to try and escape the office for a little bit, and you're scrolling through your phone, and then you look up and you stare out your car window and you think, is this it? Is this all my life is worth? Is this all I'll be doing forever? It's depressing, it's monotonous, and humans are not monotonous. Humans are forever changing, growing, creating, and for us to be reduced to mere worker bees, to mere ants compared to grasshoppers, is cruel in nature. Why are you sitting in an office for 9 or 10 hours a day? And then you sleep for 8 hours, and then you have to get ready for an hour, and you still have to find the time to work out and get your kids ready for school and get dressed and look presentable every day. And but you do get those 2 days off on the weekends to recoup before you start all over again. If you see me looking, I'm over looking at my notes. It's time for things to change. People are unhappy. We'll never grow as a society if our people are mentally ill and suicidal. Something has to give. There's no reason someone who works 40 hours a week shouldn't be able to survive, go on vacation once a year. And yes, it's necessary because humans are not robots. Humans are social animals who need a certain degree of hope and happiness to keep going. Regardless of what the work is, they are working. 30 million Americans work for minimum wage, have a second job, struggling to make ends meet. People are tired. You can't say that these are jobs for teenagers because these places are open during school hours. There are way less teenagers than there are people who are working these minimum wage positions. 30 million Americans work minimum wage jobs, and the teenage population takes up less than 13% of America. Shall we take our children out of school and make them carry the workforce of 30 million people? So all those adults can get real jobs? Because that's impossible. Not everyone wants to or is capable of maintaining what you call a real job. If everyone gets a real job, who works at the gas station at midnight? Who stocks the stores while you're gone? Who rings you up? Who drives the gas cross country to get to your city? Then we have an overabundant amount of people in the workforce with real jobs, diminishing the value of said real job in the first place, which will lower wages due to competition. Ultimately, we're back to square one. People are struggling, but that's the thing. With our current system, there have to be poor people for this to work. There has to be a large class of exploited people doing the brunt work while the richest profit. In reality, the system is not made to pay you your worth, because if they did, they'd make no profit. The name of the game is to undercut labor costs as much as possible for maximum profit, and your workers fall into debt by trying to close the gap between treading water and drowning. That's the only way this system works. No debt, no money in circulation. We get no free healthcare, so we fall into debt with medical bills. Access to education isn't free, so you fall into debt trying to get one. Every corporation in this country is for profit. Just look at how US billionaires got $1.8 trillion richer during the pandemic while the working class got poor. We died, but we worked. I worked at Starbucks and was thanked by customers that I was there to hand them their morning coffee. That's not a compliment. While the richest of the world had splendor vacations and an altogether $4 trillion boost in their profits from us, we suffered, but we made them rich. In the words of Jeff Bezos as he went into space, "I want to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer," Bezos said, "because you paid for all of this." And if you believe that a billionaire gives a damn about you defending them, I pity you, because they'll never care about you. They'd sell you for $1, a penny. Because when you get that rich, you are consumed by greed. You are consumed by a force that is stronger than your instinct to care for humanity. I'm not jealous of billionaires. That's not my goal in life. I just want to be financially free. I want to be able to travel when I feel like it, eat takeout every day, and help others. But that doesn't cost much. Certainly not $1 billion anyway. I don't care about cars. My dream car was a Kia Soul, which I got for $3,000, and I could not be happier. I don't care about purses or expensive jewelry because that's just not my taste. I want freedom, I want vacations, I want trips, I want experiences because those are priceless. You can buy more jewels, you can buy more cars, but you can never buy time. It's a finite resource for us humans anyway, because we only live for so long. If you compare our lifespans to the lifespans of the universe, our lives are menial. They're so short. So why are we spending our lives working to enrich someone else? What's wrong with wanting your own homestead and your own crops and your own livestock and your own water source? What's wrong with that? Why is that seen as lazy? Why is that seen as unacceptable? Because you're not working for somebody else? Because you're not making the next billionaire a penny more than what he needs? But if you do care for those things, such as cars and jewelry and more material objects, go for it. That is your right. That is your goal. So reach it. However, that is not the goal of everyone. So it has to be okay to want to be rich and wealthy and all this stuff in material items, and be rich and wealthy in terms of freedom, in terms of time as well. That is the goal of anti-work. Freedom from the illusion of choice. Because if you have to choose between life or death, that's not really an option. Humans by birth have the natural instinct to survive. But that doesn't mean suffer. Just because you survive doesn't mean you have to suffer. That is not all life is, suffering. Some states are lowering the minimum age to work and expanding the hours in which minors are allowed to work. These companies will exploit your children, just like they did in the 18 and 1900s, before they pay you what you're worth. And this is happening in Wisconsin, just one state out of many. And a question I saw from some people on the Twitter article were asking, how do you pay your bills? Well, you have to work, either by keeping the job you resent, freelance or gig work, or starting your own business. The name anti-work doesn't mean we're against all form of work. We're against the mistreatment and typical workforce that we see today. The minimum wage was created by FDR, and he said himself that minimum wage was created to live a good quality of life, meaning more than just the bare necessities, meaning a vacation once a year, getting a nice thing every once in a while, not just scraping by your coattail. He said this himself. I'll insert a picture of the quote here.
In my inaugural, I laid down the simple proposition that nobody is going to starve in this country. It seems to me to be equally plain that no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country. By business, I mean the whole of commerce, as well as the whole of industry. By workers, I mean all workers, the white-collar class as well as the men in overalls. And by living wages, I mean more than a bare subsistence level. I mean the wages of a decent living. Throughout industry, the change from starvation wages and starvation employment to living wages and sustained employment can, in large part, be made by an industrial covenant to which all employers shall subscribe. By FDR, by the man who created federal minimum wage, he says that this is supposed to be meant to have a decent living off of. There's no excuse for the confusion around what minimum wage is supposed to be.
Minimum wage needs to be a living wage. And what do you think of living wage, you say? Well, it varies from state to state and city to city. But a living wage should be what FDR said a minimum wage should be, a livable wage. You should be able to take a vacation once a year. You should be able to have time off from your job and not go broke. You shouldn't have to live paycheck to paycheck, or your child shouldn't have to go without new school clothes one year, or you have to decide whether or not you're going to pay your water bill or eat that night. It's not acceptable, especially in a country that is the greatest in the world. The key is to get rid of unnecessary expenses so you don't have to work as much, which gives you more time to follow your passions and find other sources of income. Look at the FIRE movement. Financial independence, retire early. Their goal is to retire early, to get savings, to get out of the workforce as fast as possible, to minimize spending and maximize saving. There are many sublet FIRE groups with different paths to achieve the retire early goal. And we also have van lifers, but that's another video. If you like videos on van lifing or the FIRE movement, you can leave a comment in the comment section, and I will make a video about that as well, because I find those topics very interesting. And then people ask, what about retirement, Social Security, and corruption? Surprisingly enough, I don't think that my generation, Gen Z, or millennials will ever see a dime of Social Security income, because we're already draining it, really, because we're spending more to sustain the people on it than tax dollars going toward the program. And there's money that has been stolen from the Social Security program, and people are living longer, which means we have to shell out longer Social Security benefits to those people for living longer. We can't kill them. We can't just get rid of them. So we have to sustain them. And there's just not enough balance between people who are in the system and people currently coming into the system. And honestly, I don't think our government will be honest about the situation with Social Security, and we won't know the reality of how bad the situation is until it's too late, or else they risk retaliation and or people not paying taxes at all since they know it's not securing them an easy retirement. So in that case, we're really better off contributing to a Roth IRA account or making our own long-term investments. And I'm really better off spending 10 years building my own business or streams of income rather than relying on one job for everything. Lots of these jobs require overtime and open availability, which leaves you with no time to cultivate your own revenue elsewhere. The purpose of public education was to train students to become skilled workers while teaching them the traditional core academic disciplines. This is what our country has trained us for, not to be creative, not to think outside the box, but to be obedient workers, to clock in and clock out, to not question what is told or taught to us. You've been indoctrinated. It's really sad to see what our country has become and watch people suffer to survive while working full time. You should not work full time and not be able to survive. That is not right. That is not okay at all, even on a moral standpoint. And getting a real job and telling everyone to get real jobs and work harder and pull yourself up by the bootstraps is not helpful. It's very dismissive, it's very closed-minded, and it's not realistic. Because like I said, if all 30 million Americans who make $15 or less switched over to real jobs, who is working these fake jobs? Because if they're not real jobs, what are they? If they're not doing these menial jobs, if they're not being a fry cook, who's going to do it? If less than 12% of the population is a teenager, how is less than 12% of the population going to carry 30 million people who have left these jobs vacant? That doesn't make any sense. Therefore, we need to change and make sure that these people who are working these not real jobs can survive, because without them, we do not have a secure structure to sustain our society. We do not have a secure structure of truckers, of bus drivers, of fry cooks, and cashiers and things of that sort. You might think these people are nobodies or they deserve what they have right now or they deserve to be poor, but they really don't, because without them, you don't have a functioning society. So we need to make sure that the backbone of our society is able to sustain themselves. And this is why people are turning anti-work, because we're working, but we're not getting richer. We're not getting wealthier. We're not passing on assets and inheritance to our next generations. We're not creating generational wealth. We're staying poor. And that's the problem. Anyways, thanks for watching. And remember to think for yourself and have an open mind, because reality is always stranger than fiction. Bye.